The Toronto Maple Leafs have made multiple moves, including a surprising move surrounding Fraser Minten. We're going to break down exactly that move and what it means going forward for the Leafs. We also have some more details surrounding Anthony Stolarz and his injury. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the daily Leafs content, sometimes multiple videos a day. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers. So thank you guys for your continued support. But Darius, there's a lot to go over today. And it's a huge day for the Toronto Maple Leafs when it comes to news. We know that Anthony Stolarz is going to be out for a month to a month and a half. We do have some other insight on that front, but what also happened today that kind of flew under the radar was Fraser Minten. We've been discussing whether or not he was going to stay with the team. He looked really good in his first few games, then he started to tail a little bit towards the end, but Fraser Minten was assigned, or has been assigned, to the Toronto Marlies. And really, this is to open up space for David Kampf, which we'll get into as well in this in the video here. But Darius, what are your initial thoughts on this? We saw 2 goals and 2 assists in 11 games. Now we'll get a chance to develop further in the AHL with more consistent top line minutes. Very solid start. Again, a lot of those points came in the first couple of games for Fraser Minten, but at the end of the day, they put him back to the Marlies. They want to see him develop. We kind of knew this was going to happen. As soon as he got called up, Brad Treliving came out and said, hey, we're going to send him back to the Marlies when we can. They were just dealing with a plethora of injuries, and now that almost everybody is back, aside from Anthony Stolarz, they sent back the young, promising forward to the Marlies.
Yeah, we're 1 forward away from being fully healthy with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I think that's exciting, but I still think a move is going to come. We'll get to that in a second. But in terms of Fraser Minten, I thought he played really well. At the beginning, I was like, you know what? Everyone's injured right now. They're going to call him up. They're going to see what they have in him, and that'll be fun, right? And then he started turning heads. He turned my head. He started changing my mind as the games went on. But as the games went on, and especially last Saturday in Detroit, and as you could see, obviously Sunday being scratched, and I think it had less to do with him and more to do with the fact that they had a couple bodies they could use and put into the lineup on the second half of a back-to-back. You could see that he wasn't being too much of an impact player, and I don't know if he could hold down that third line. And I'm not saying that Max Domi can in the center position, right? I still think that they're probably going to go out and make a move. But Fraser Minten going to the AHL is not a bad thing. He's still young. He's only 20 years old. He's going to continue to develop there. He's going to play top line minutes. He's probably going to play on the power play, the penalty kill, 5-on-5. He's probably going to play top line minutes, maybe with Alex Nylander, right? So he's going to continue to get touches. He's going to get better at the fine details of the game. And I think that's a good thing, because will he get better playing with the Leafs? Probably, but it might be stagnant, a little stagnant with him playing on the third line. And I think he's going to take on more responsibility, and he's going to learn to become a better hockey player with the Toronto Marlies. So I think this is the best move. If he really came out and he was an impact player and you could not take him out of the lineup, you absolutely couldn't, because he was playing so well. That's one thing, but I didn't see that as the games went on. I thought he was playing pretty good, right? He was holding it down for a bit. But as the games went on, you could see that, he wasn't as impactful as he was when he first got called up. So I think this is the best course of action. I think that he's going to be an impact player for the Leafs down the road. I'm not saying a first-line center or anything like that, but I think he's going to have a role on the team, and he's going to be really good at it. And it's going to be part in because him being sent back to the AHL right now.
Yeah, I think we're seeing this across the entire Leaf structure regarding for management. They were being careful with their prospects this season. They obviously called Fraser Minten up a little bit. We're seeing now they'll have a decision to make with Dennis Hildeby, Arthur Tiamov, a lot of different things like that. I think they're going to keep back Tiamov down to let them produce. Eason Cowan, they were pretty conservative with him as well. And you can see this here from Ryan MA Scouting. As I touched on before, with the team getting healthy, it just made sense for Minten to get more AHL reps. No shame in that. And he lists a bunch of different players that needed a real run in the minors before coming up to the NHL. I expect him to play an important role down the stretch for Toronto. And this is an interesting point as well. I mean, there is a world where if he tears it up in the AHL, they see improvement and development throughout the season, they could call him back up at some point. I think a more likely outcome, though, is going to be next season. I think that's probably the goal for Fraser Minten, because I also think they're still looking, as these reports have continued to surface and that we're going to dive into in future videos, third line center. There's going to be a big need for a third line center. The Leafs are actively shopping for a third line center, a second line center, forward. So I think they'd rather fill these immediate holes, at least from other NHL players, rather than a guy like Fraser Minten that they might have to rush up. And he had a very good start, but like you mentioned, in his last 4 games, he played under 12 minutes in 4 of the last 5. He was solid. Like we mentioned in our streams and the videos, he looked good, but especially in that last game, I know you weren't there for the stream, actually, in his last game, you didn't really notice that he was on the ice, and that's going to happen with young players, but ultimately this is the best for him. And I'm glad that the Leafs are at least getting healthy now, so you don't have to see them rush up any guys. There are some fans who are up in arms, though, about replacing David Kampf with Fraser Minten, given some of the things we saw from him, but we can dive into that here now in a second.
Yeah, David Camp is going to come back. And I don't know if it's replacing him. I think, we're going to get to the lines in a second too, but it looks like Connor Dewar is coming out for David Camp, right? So I think they're going to play with that and kind of make a decision on who's staying in terms of fourth line center position. But I think Minten is just an example of this is a young player. Don't rush him into the league. He's flying by the seat of his pants the last month or so because of the injury. So he just came in and obviously he had that goal. He's in the right spots. Like he was playing well, and you can see that the hockey IQ is very high with him, right? You can see these things, but he needs more touches. He needs to gain more confidence in different situations if he's going to play a bigger role for the Leafs in the future. And he can't do that playing third line minutes and kind of struggling at times with this team, right? So he's got to go down to the Marlies, continue to develop. He's going to play with really good players, probably going to have fun. The Marlies are really good this year. They have great goaltending. So there's a lot of storylines with that team as well. And just go down there, rip it up offensively, because this is a guy as well, besides last season, wasn't really known as an offensive guy, right? He was more of a two-way guy, more defensive, I would think. And last year, he really picked up the offensive game. So if he can bring that, what he brought last year in junior, to the AHL level, continue to develop that, when he comes up to the Leafs again in a year's time, let's say maybe 2 years, he's going to be really impactful. And I just don't think that's the case with him right now. I think that John Gruden does a good job with the Marlies down there. So send them down. No harm in it. If they have to make a trade later in the season, it is what it is. Hopefully it's not a rental, but I don't think Fraser Minten is ready to be that full-time third line center yet.
Yeah. Now, replacing him, like you mentioned, this tweet was from David Alter earlier this morning, and this was before he got the news, I guess, on Stolar, so that's why he mentions that at the end there. But practice is underway. David Camp is taking part. We expect him to be ready to go. And you mentioned the lines, and there are some things I want to dive into here. So some big changes, and we'll have a video tomorrow covering this in more detail as we actually see what Berube confirms ahead of tomorrow night's game. But at the moment, it's looking like Nylander's, Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Tavares, Pacioretty, McMahon, Dobie, Robertson, Lawrence, Camp, and Reeves. There's a ton of different things to take away from this. One, David Camp's back in. Two, Ryan Reeves is replacing Connor Dewar, which I absolutely can't stand, but I understand the premise to a degree. And then, of course, the top line, they don't want to listen to me, I guess, which, it is what it is. Matthews and Marner stay together. Darius, they get rid of Nyes out of that top line and replace him with Nylander. So they do put Nylander alongside Matthews, which I like, but they keep Marner on that top line. I think if you literally just replace Marner with Nyes here, this would look very, obviously Nyes in the left wing, but this would look very good and pretty close to what I would like here. But a lot of different things here. Dewar, again, he's practicing his defenseman because he's not likely to be playing tomorrow. But Ryan Reeves replacing Dewar. You have Pontus Holmberg as an extra, and they did change the top line, but it's not what I expected whatsoever, quite frankly.
Yeah, earlier in the season, I was like, okay, I think I'm understanding what Craig Berube is doing, and I'm on the same wavelength, and I'm agreeing with a lot. And then he started doing something like this in the last game, and I was like, okay, maybe we're on different pages here because, I've been saying on streams and videos, Nylander, Marner, and Matthews should maybe have their own lines, and now they're all on the same line. But as I look at this on paper, it's pretty interesting, actually. And I think that Craig Berube might be onto something because he talks a lot about roles. He talks a lot about identity. And the reason that the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup is because he had tools, and every line had something that they brought to the table. If you look at the first line, it's skill. The second line, it's heavy. Third line, a little bit of energy. Fourth line is checking. So I think that he might be doing something like that. I could be way off base, but that's kind of what I'm picking up here just on paper. And I wonder if that's kind of what he's looking for. And he knows, okay, I can throw this line out in this situation if I need this. So he did that a lot in St. Louis. So I wonder if he's trying to mimic that in a way. And again, the defensive pairings haven't really changed for a while here, like McCabe and Tanev. But I am very interested to see what this looks like against Dallas because honestly, they were kind of onto something at the end of that Buffalo Sabres game. So it's going to be interesting. Again, I don't know the dynamic of having your three best players on the first line, how that's going to work. But I think it was working, at least the whole team dynamic, again, the second half of that Sabres game on Sunday. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and Dewar is out as well, which is intriguing. Again, you're going up against a very good Dallas Stars team tomorrow. So it's going to be ultimately interesting to see how they go with this top line, if they stick with it, and how Ryan Reeves performs in lieu of his absence. But again, the power play units, you can have a quick look at them here. Riley Marner, Nylander, Matthews, Tavares, OEL, Robertson, Pacioretty, Domi, and Nyes. And hopefully Robertson can continue his hot streak here. But a couple of things before we wrap up, in case you were interested, surrounding Anthony Stolarz here. So like we mentioned earlier today, it is a loose body that was stuck behind his knee. He said so he's going to have a procedure to have that removed. It's not a repair. It's not anything of that nature. but they're going to remove the body. I guess it looks like a little pebble. And at this time, we're going to list him as week to week. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit of a better update later. And he would anticipate that we're looking in the 4 to 6 week window, hopefully sooner rather than later. So it could be in, I wouldn't say before 4 weeks, but it is possible there. Has to be addressed. We're going to get it addressed. And this isn't something that's going to linger and isn't something that's going to, be a detriment going forward. So some positive signs there. He's kind of wording this more optimistic than I expected. I think he's going to be good. Any quick final thoughts before I wrap up?
I'm not too worried about it because it's not an injury. It's something that they found and he has to have a procedure on it. And I think the fact that he's going to be out for so long is more due to the fact that they're opening him up, right? It's no injury. Nothing's torn or anything like that. So he should be okay. And hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. He can, get rehab and all that. So hopefully it's like mid-January at this point because there was a lot of talks of he might be out till the Four Nations Cup. So that would be tough, but hopefully he's back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, let us know down below what your thoughts are on all of this. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news. And again, more videos are coming as news continues to drop. So make sure to subscribe button. See you guys later.